Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back to the channel and joining us for this very special and I dare say exclusive video in the English-speaking world. We have the great friend of the channel, Xavier Ayral, and also a face we haven't seen for a little while. It's Monique.
Hello, everyone. I
Where
missed you.
Yeah, it's been great to have you back. Some people have been asking where you've been, but both of you are taking time out of a very busy schedule. You're away in a very special place. I don't know how much you're allowed to tell us, but where are you joining us from? What have you been up to?
Well, Monique and I have been invited with our respective families, Monique, her husband and her two children, me with my wife and my two children, to a common friend's house in Montana, a place which is very special and will be very special in future times. So we've been invited to come here with both our respective families for about a week. We've been looking of the different places preparation. We went to Yellowstone. We tried to make a family get together, and since Monique's children are my children's best friends and vice versa.
Yeah.
So remarkably, we left for a week. We are both with our families going back. Me back to Florida. Monique goes back to Canada, and but the purpose of this call, and we are both of us, since we are working together, and we are going to open together a new podcast channel, and where we are going to work very closely with you in sheer collaboration, Mark. Um, we are very grateful that you took the time to receive us because, remarkably enough, Monique and I, we received a telephone call yesterday at 6 o'clock, between 6:30 from Father Michel Rodrigue. 6 o'clock Montana time, which it's 2 hours behind him. So it was about 8:30, 8:15 in the morning. And I was quite alarmed when he called me. I immediately afterwards called Monique from and Father Michel, and I've known him now for a little over a year. I've never seen him so
Distraught.
exactly,
Very distraught.
and very much affected by an experience he had the day prior, the evening prior, with an apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary, who looked, in his own words, devastated. She could not retain her tears anymore. She was like somebody who had lost something or was about to go through a catastrophe. Those were the words that were used by Father Michel. So at that moment, Father Michel told us, or told me, and I related afterwards to Monique, that the Virgin Mary asked Father Michel to have the messages uh, and the one he was about to receive, and also those of other messengers from heaven to be propagated, particularly that of Maria in Medjugorje, and the one in Italy,
Oh,
Maria. Yeah.
Gisela Cardia.
Gisela Arcadia.
Okay.
And surprisingly enough, one of our viewers who's been getting locutions but keeping it private, she received one as well, saying pray for France.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. Okay.
And the message that Father Michel received is very great. He mentioned that Virgin told him that indeed this we must propagate the message of urgency from the Virgin Mary from heaven to as many faithful as possible for them to, even if it is late, to join in this novena, which will finish on June the 24th.
Mm.
And he explained that this novena, which will take place and will be successful, will only alleviate and lower the intensity of the events to come. She added, the Third World War will still proceed forward. It will be instigated by France, and there will be a formal declaration of war. A formal declaration of war. At that moment, Father Michel was given visions of the consequences of these messages. And he was so shocked by what he just saw that, that he began to weep. Yesterday, when we went to Mass, I spoke with the only brother of the monastery who hasn't gone to see their family in vacation. His name is Brother René, Frère René, who told me, Xavier, Father Michel has not been able to maintain his composure. He has had this experience. He doesn't want to talk about it, but he's weeping. He's having a very hard time maintain his phlegmatism during Mass. He asked me to read the readings of Mass, but he's having a very hard time. He's all the time weeping. When I spoke again with Father Michel after that, he told me, I apologize for this. I am so embarrassed. It's just was so horrible. And he added, since in all my existence that I knew that I've been having experiences with the Holy Spirit, even in the worst of times, the Holy Spirit was always a spirit of joy, of happiness, of hope. And in this instance, it's the first time in my existence that I've seen the Holy Spirit completely broken down because he knows that the Blessed Virgin Mary is devastated. And you want to continue?
No, go ahead.
And to that, Father Michel, blame. I discussed once again, and you're the first podcast in Anglo-Saxon, as that is, Larry, that we've addressed this particular message to. So you have so far the exclusivity. And I did ask him if he would be interested, therefore, in proceeding forward with the proposal I made him some time ago of contacting all the captains of all the podcasts that I've been dealing with in France, with the Anglo-Saxon countries, yourself, United States, Canada, and the Hispanic ones as well. We're talking about somewhere between 15 to 20 different podcasts altogether, with each having their respective subtitles in their respective languages, and for him to address everyone live and take questions directly from the captains of every podcast panel. He said, very likely, we will wait until January the 24th. The Virgin announced to me that she would come and give me a message. I know that I suspect this will happen with Medjugorje and with the other visionaries, but I know I will expect a message on the 24th, and I will let you know if indeed we're proceed forward. If that's the case, Mark, then I will invite you, or Monique and I will invite you to do this, since now we're going to work together. And so as to be there with the other captains, there will be a moment for him to explain, to bring forth a message, and to take questions from all of you captains, and to respond accordingly. Did I forget something?
Well, I'll just say in that note, I mean, the quality of the video isn't great, but I am making out what you're still saying, Xavier. I know you're out there in Montana and you're on the mobile to get this urgent message over. But I'm still hearing you more than I'm seeing you at times. So I don't know, maybe your phone needs a break with me, kind of to say a few words, then it comes back clear again. So we wait
Okay.
till the June 24th to see what the update would be for his plans then. But I would definitely, you know me, my yes is yes, wherever the Lord leads, wherever doors open. I always say I give God my availability, not my ability. He does the work. Yeah, I'd be honored and grateful, and it's been a privilege so far all along to be actually doing this, seeing my channel grow, having both of you come on, and now that we're going to work together in these very pivotal times, because the even with if you take Father Rodrigue aside for a second, even just the fact that this new urgent request from Our Lady at Medjugorje, think back to January with that one sentence message, it was very different, got people thinking. But then that a month or two later, she had them up the Apparition Hill in the rain for hours as a special request to really focus the prayer for peace. And now this, it's like the silent you don't need to know a doom and gloom message. You don't need to know anything. It's just the fact that she's putting such emphasis on this request. I need more. And the great thing is seeing the people respond all over the world, as well as tuning into the live feed. And that's enough for me to realize, wait, this is real. This is getting real. It's about to hit the fan type of thing, as we would say. But this is becoming more real. It hits the conviction but then you add in Father Michel Rodrigue and what's been happening there, and the fact, like you say, he's been so inconsolable for what he's seen and heard of what's coming soon. But again, that's not a surprise to us when we know the timeline. Marie-Julie Jahenney, La Salette, the first quarter of the 21st century. France is the spark. I remember that being one of the quotes. So this comes as no surprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there is a difference, and I'm sure your viewers will agree with you and with me in discussing prophecies for future events. And now we are really starting to live all this. And the consequences for millions and millions of people's lives will be dire. So it is something to consider very seriously. And that is why we decided to call you and to you and other podcast leaders. So you're the first one. Well, actually, second one, we spoke first with a Frenchman this morning, but your first Anglo-Saxon one, laddie. And
Lots in the
so,
French history repeating itself.
yes. So I thank you. You were terrific and extremely elegant. A typical Mark McLean thing to do to receive us at the 11th hour with ever so short notice. That's a typically elegant thing of you to do. So that you don't surprise either Monique or me. Thank you very much, Mark.
No,
You
thank
know,
you.
Mark, I mentioned something. You know, we've had, or I've had many questions from many viewers who've asked me, which are the podcasters we can trust with all this AI business going on, all
Mm.
these Catholic channels that are popping up that are AI. People have wondered who they can trust. Well, this podcast we're going to do with all these podcasters, these are the ones we trust, we rely on. So you'll have an idea as to maybe that can give you an idea as to who to follow
Yeah.
because yeah,
No,
those
for
ones are
sure.
real.
Yeah, for sure, because I
Mhm.
know it's easier and it's easy and convenient maybe to use those AI resources, and I even considered it recently myself, just for the sake of consistency, but making sure I was putting things together because I don't have a team. I just do everything here in my humble abode, and I work full time. So this is what I try to focus on as well. And get it out there because the urgency is real. 20 years ago, I was aware of most of the apparitions, but it was anyone's guess to where things might happen. And then in the recent few years, it's like it's becoming clearer and clearer the more I read. Xavier, your book, the interviews, and looking at a few others, and then people on the channel, it's like you start seeing the jigsaw pieces coming together. But now it's as if we're right in the thick of it. We're seeing things happening in the church where, again, the status of the papacy is getting lessen and lessen. We're seeing Russia back in the warfare now after the pandemic, and society in general just seems to be disintegrating in many forms. Snap elections everywhere, distractions, and then the G7 summit, and the Pope turns up to speak about AI at the G7 summit, and it's like, there are more important things to be discussing right now. And yeah, it's just a case of waiting. I was actually saying last week to people, you know, maybe now actually it's real to think that those little children from Garabandal of Fatima, when they saw the visions of the events to come, who was that Pope in the vision? Who were those world leaders in that vision? What was the countries in those visions? We might be seeing the people they saw in those visions. And I never thought of that before. We might actually be seeing the same faces. We might be hearing of the same names that way, way back then, they might not even have been born at the time, if you go back as far as Fatima or Marie-Julie Jahenney. But did they see the visions with the same faces that we see right now? Are we really right in that thick of it? That reality? That's what I was wondering. It kind of hit me with conviction
That
last
way.
week. That's how close I believe we are with it all. It's right at the doorstep.
Yeah,
It,
it is.
it really
It
is.
is.
But I still find great hope and joy. And the thing is, I was saying this to Robert, my friend, yesterday. He was in Garabandal for a day as he does the Camino. And with all this talk and these messages and these hard events that really might leave a knot in people's stomach, when you've got the faith, it's great. And on Saturday, I had the most amazing surprise going to a wedding, a beautiful Catholic wedding, and appreciating it now as someone that's just been married a year and a half myself to a wonderful Catholic woman. I met people I've known for 20 years, but I haven't seen in many years. people from this Youth 2000 prayer group, from the pilgrimage at Medjugorje, from my former community, the Franciscan friar of the renewal I hadn't seen in 10 years. We're all together for this couple whom we all knew. And that journey, walking with God, meeting different people along the way, and we're brought together again at the great sacrament of the marriage. And I always remember Lucia's quote, that last decisive battle would be over marriage and family. And I'm thinking the joyful moment to appreciate what it means to be Catholic in this day and age. And if this is the future remnant church, this is the modern day catechumens, we're going to be in a happy place regardless of what's happening because God's at the center of it. And it was a great day just to appreciate the faith being shared amongst us all in this 20 plus year journey of how we've all connected throughout the years. It was an amazing surprise. It was beautiful. And that's what I hold on to with the faith, come what may. We're people of the resurrection, you know, we're Easter people.
It's an exciting time. And when we consider that saints have said, they wish they could live in this time. They would do anything to live in this time. And here we are chosen for this time. So it's
Yeah, for
something.
sure. Definitely. And I think again, like you've said, Xavier, I know you hold on to it with previous videos, to this year, even into next year, that full quarter of the century, it is pivotal. I mean, did Father Michel say anything, like a timeline or how close things might be, anything like that?
No,
It's
the
just
only timeline that he gave us was to wait until 24th of June. He will get a message which he will relay to me, and his next instructions, which will involve very likely this podcast with all the captains at hand. Already, John Henry Weston agreed, Doug Berry agreed, and Father Helmer. Who else? Oh, Kristen Bacon. I think I mentioned her. Yeah. Agreed. A certain lady called Monique Turnbul, I think, agreed.
could that be?
There will be a lot of Spaniards. Luis Roman, Padre Renzo. Luis Roman is a heavy duty over there. And Canal Católico, which has over 800,000 viewers. Yes, Fernando.
Oh, what is it?
I forgot. But we have about 18 to 20 different captains. You will be one of amongst them. And but in order to appear, you have to appear all in French uniform, Navy French uniform. And you'll have to have underneath Vive la France. Otherwise, there is
Yes, Vive la France.
We are joking, but the situations do not call for joking. I'm just trying to alleviate and lighten a bit the mood. But the situation is really serious and very grave.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
many,
a clarion call, isn't it? Like we're answering the call, and to have such big numbers of channels, it actually gives testimony to the support and belief in Father Michel Rodrigue or the willingness to serve God where the invitation comes. So that says a lot as well.
That, I think, for Monique, who was the second person to invite Father Michel to have given him an antenna, an audience, shows a victory. Because when we started this in August of last year, you remember Monique, Father Michel was totally alone, completely alone. So now the majority of the public opinion definitely have understood. And have taken under consideration the testimony that Monique and I have given about listening to the people who witnessed the event when he said on December the 28th, 2022, that God the Father told him at that Mass that Pope Benedict XVI would never see the year 2023. That was a great risk because that was 3 days away. There was no clue as of yet that Pope Benedict XVI was on the verge of death. And yet it happened exactly as it was foretold.
And before witnesses.
Which I interrogated in Quebec. No? So no one can say anymore, well, that's not true. We have given testimony.
That's right.
So back to that trust thing that you were saying earlier as well, Monique, like you're inviting those whom you trust, but at the same time, I'm receiving you and like your judgment as well, Xavier, for going up there with your background with Father Laurentine and all that. It's like I trust your judgment as well. I know we're all discerning, but
No, yours.
there's a
You're
set.
very knowledgeable. That's one of your greatest assets. And I think, by the way, you're getting enormous amount of popularity here in the States. And one of your greatest assets, Mark, is you're knowledgeable. And the way you describe things, you have an accent. No, not Scottish accent, but an accent of authenticity.
Ah,
Uh, yes, uninterested authenticity that gives you immense credibility.
I don't know how to take comments like that, but I'll just say thank you. Thanks, God.
I tell you can say, Vive la France!
For many, many years, it's just always been a natural inclination and curiosity. And from the youngest years of childhood, watching the movies, The Miracle of Fatima, The Song of Bernadette, and then finally discovering Medjugorje, and it's like it's happening now. I had to get there. And then, of course, everything else is history with the other Garabandal, Akita, etc. Haven't got to them all, but I've been to a few. And yeah, nothing's a coincidence. It's a God incidence. God's put us together for sure. And that availability I just keep giving. I know I'm not a perfect man, none of us are, but I'm authentic enough with my own conscience that I can't fool God, but he has my willingness. He has the zeal of mine, you know. So whatever he wants me to do, please God, I can do it with his grace. And that's what the channel's for. And it is the urgent call for people to realize everything that's happening in society and the world is crumbling away. Everything's anti-Christian more and more. It's so obvious, it's clear as the nose in your face. Schools, the curriculums, society. Who's sitting in the pews at Mass every Sunday agreeing with the world but disagreeing with the magisterium of the church?
That's right.
It's just there, and it's machinery week after week. God needs to clear the house out, and that's why I believe she's appeared in Medjugorje in grey, the handmaiden. She's cleaning out the house. That's the
Mm,
plan.
good point.
Hmm.
Preparing for a new Pentecost. And the picture behind you, the flame of love, I've done a recent video interview about all with that and Elizabeth Kindleman. That's the end result, the divine will on earth, the flame of love, the new Pentecost, that fire in everyone's heart. That's the triumph. That's the hope that we're waiting for. Can I get
Indeed.
an
I
amen?
I couldn't agree with you more. Uh, Here in Montana right now, it's 10 to 5. I think that my wife and your husband are cooking something for dinner. So we'll ask you to kindly excuse us. I
Yeah.
will continue if it's not an imposition and if you give us permission, Mark. And since we're good friends, I know it's not very polite on my part, but it's your fault. You made us feel very comfortable with you. So, and since we're going to be working together, if I get more news from Father, if we get more news from Father Michel, we will contact you and set up another emergency video call such as this one and proceed and inform you on the very spot. You'll be number one again with the Anglo-Saxons.
Yeah, I was very eager all day looking forward to it, knowing that you had something to tell, so I'm glad I stayed up late for it. And just to recap before you go, Xavier, then he's obviously been very emotional at the message and the vision he saw, and the real thing to take is to pray for France, because this war's going to get declared soon, and it'll be between Russia and France. But then that would set off NATO, I'd imagine. But maybe that's something we could follow up with later, unless you've
I
got.
have a feeling, I have a feeling that it's not going to be NATO that will declare war on Russia. The Americans will never be that crazy. I have a feeling, based on my conversation with Father Michel Rodrigue, that it will be an independent war declared by, I think, France being the instigator.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of Europeans that already do not agree in following their politic. So I think it's going to be France alone that will oil in the fire, shall we say. But one thing is certain, Father Michel stated clearly, and I made him repeat twice, will be a formal declaration of war. And this novena will not stop that. It will simply alleviate somewhat the intensity of the events to come.
And Gisela Cardia has mentioned that France will see revolution in the streets, that France will see civil war, basically, which is exactly what Marie-Jane predicted before a nuclear attack. So where Paris will be destroyed, and so we can see this coming together. And then there was also the prediction that Putin would what was it? Putin would give offer peace, or what was it?
A peace treaty, a peace offer,
a peace offer,
which has been turned down. We found out this morning there was zero chance for this peace treaty to be ever accepted by this Zelensky. No.
He's just received $50 billion in aid and the declaration with America to back him up from the G7 summit. Apparently, 80 other countries are trying to get a peace deal to stop anything more of war, but the main countries never turned up. So again, it's the G7 pushing the agenda.
It could be 100 billion euros. The Russians do not know how to lose. They will not lose this war. And if they, by any chance, they begin to withdraw little by little, and if they even suspect the chance of losing this conflict, they will use tactical weapons. How can anyone on earth who has 2 bits of intelligence possibly think that the first nuclear power in the world will back down to a Lilliputian such as Ukraine? Even if it is backed down by NATO, it will be a humiliation that Putin will never survive. The Russians cannot accept the notion of losing. And if, God forbids, they decide to order a national mobilization, we're talking about 9 to 11 million Russian troops joining their ranks, which is about a little bit more than what the Wehrmacht had in its zenith during the 1942 campaigns. Who on earth in Europe or in the States would be able to counteract that kind of massive force? No, not only matters of nuclear arsenal, the Russians are today #1 in the world, but if they make a national mobilization, they will have the first conventional army as well around the world, with the support of nations such as Iran, North Korea, and I regret to say China.
Yeah.
So it's simply sheer madness, sheer utter madness. But instead of trying to find a committee to find a diplomatic solution to the situation, no, they think that they're going to play with fire and push the Russian to where they will have no other choice but to push a button. And then they will stand on the borderline of a ravished, flattened London, flattened and destroyed Paris. And they say, well, we did what we were supposed to do. Oh, great consolation for those who perished in those great 2 cities. Yeah. It's absolutely irresponsible.
I don't know if you've watched it yet, but you should see the recent interview with the Serbian president. It's been very interesting.
It was good. Yes, it was very interesting.
Yes. He's not mixing his words for what he knows is coming ahead as well. And again, November elections in America is going to be a massive thing that's going to have a great focus in which way things go before or especially after it. So I think that's what everything's getting geared towards. The corrupt agenda needs to keep going. And the only hope for over there right now is to get Trump in. Even if you hate him, vote for him in order to save your planet. That's what I'm saying to people. But
Exactly.
I'll say thanks again. I'm glad I waited up and thank you again for giving us your precious time. I know you're there on holiday. This came out the blue to you as well. And you've answered that call in an emergency style way to get the word out there. And of course, it's going to have its ripple effects when more people get the chance to spread the word. And we await that further update on June 24th from Father Michel. And I very much look forward to hearing about it. But I would urge everyone until then, keep the faith, keep the hope. Remember, we have our Mother in Heaven who's been planning all along to counteract everything that the devil wants to throw at us and destroy us. But God's already won the victory. So keep praying, join the novenas. I hope to get live at least one of the evenings this week, tuning in to Mary TV. And Monique and Xavier, enjoy the rest of your time in good old cowboy land. I really wish I was there. And for everyone, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and share. Cast those nets and reach as many people as possible. Time is of the essence. And until next time, pray, hope, and don't worry. God bless.
God
God
bless you.
bless
Thank you.
you.